The Raging Bull Unleashed. Dr. Rowley's TATT response reveals a man willing to pay any price to demonize the Prime Minister. An editorial by Professor Wall Street.
Former PM's defiant Facebook rant proves late Patrick Manning was right about his temperament.
The late former Prime Minister Patrick Manning once warned Trinidad and Tobago about Dr. Keith Rowley's volatile temperament, saying that when Rowley becomes angry, he becomes a raging bull. Yesterday, in response to the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, TATT, warning Guardian Media Limited about broadcasting his jam-met attack on Prime Minister Kamla Persad Bissessar, Rowley proved Manning prophetically correct. In a lengthy Facebook rant, Rowley refused to acknowledge that calling the Prime Minister a sexually degrading term was inappropriate. He doubled down, claiming he reserves the right to respond as I see fit, and declaring he's quite happy to do so, even stating he's even happier if it costs him money because the hypocrites could take a hike. This is not the response of a statesman. This is a man so consumed by rage and bitterness that he's willing to pay any amount, financial, reputational, or moral, to continue demonizing a woman who defeated him at the polls. 10 reasons Rowley's response is deceitful and disingenuous. 1. He pretends TATT is attacking free speech when they're enforcing broadcasting standards.
Rowley frames TATT's action as censorship. Isn't that threatening of the media part of what is happening abroad? This is pure deflection. TATT is enforcing existing broadcasting standards that existed throughout Rowley's 9 years as Prime Minister. Section D9 prohibits content that degrades or portrays in a negative manner or discriminates against any person by reason of sex. He never objected when these standards protected him. Now that they're being applied to his sexually degrading attack on a woman Prime Minister, suddenly the authoritarianism, the dishonesty is breathtaking.
2. The "where was TATT? Whataboutism" proves he has no defense. Unable to defend calling the Prime Minister a jam-met, Rowley pivots to whataboutism. Where was the TATT when Jack Warner told? Notice what he doesn't say. I didn't call her that. That term isn't degrading. I regret it. Instead, he points to others and asks why they weren't punished. This is schoolboy logic, an implicit admission of guilt coupled with complaints about selective enforcement. If TATT wasn't enforcing standards properly during his 9 years as Prime Minister, he had authority to address it. He didn't. 3. He falsely claims Parliament statements are equivalent to sexually degrading insults. Rowley argues the Prime Minister slandered him in Parliament about Balizé House financing, so he has the right to respond as I see fit. This is profoundly dishonest. Parliamentary statements are protected by privilege, so MPs can raise serious allegations. The Prime Minister made institutional allegations about party financing, supported by documented questions about raffle tickets and mysterious $100 million funding. She didn't call Rowley sexually degrading names. She made allegations he's free to refute with evidence. These are not equivalent. 4. He claims the right to respond as I see fit, including through misogyny. Rowley asserts, I reserve my right and remain quite happy to respond as I see fit outside of the Parliament. This is an explicit claim that he can use any language, including sexually degrading terms, in response to parliamentary allegations. No one has unlimited right to respond as I see fit. There are standards. Broadcasting regulations prohibit degrading people based on sex. Rowley is claiming being challenged in Parliament gives him carte blanche to violate broadcasting standards and democratic norms. This is the logic of someone who believes rules don't apply to him.
5. He's even happier to pay fines, proving this is personal vendetta. The most revealing line, if it results in a few extra dollars to the place she punters, then I am even happier.
Rowley isn't just willing to pay fines, he's even happier to do so. He views paying money to continue attacking the Prime Minister with degrading language as a worthwhile investment. This proves this isn't about defending himself, it's personal vendetta. A man so consumed by bitterness, he's willing to pay whatever it costs to continue demonizing her. A statesman would apologize. Rowley declares he'll happily pay fines to keep doing it. 6. He invents a false narrative about a rapist motion. Rowley claims this after she ran a motion declaring the opposition leader as a rapist. This is a lie. There was no such motion. He's either fabricating entirely or deliberately misrepresenting something to justify his conduct. This false claim allows Rowley to portray himself as victim of equivalent attacks, justifying his Jamet language as responding in kind. But if he must invent attacks that didn't happen to justify his actual attacks, that proves his attacks are unjustifiable. 7. He ignores that his attack was broadcast to children.
TATT specifically noted Rowley's attack would have been broadcast at a time when children would likely be watching, increasing harm to negatively portray the institution of the office of the Prime Minister.
Rowley's response completely ignores this. No concern that children heard a former Prime Minister call the current Prime Minister a sexually degrading term. No recognition this teaches young people, especially young women, that women in power can be attacked through sexual degradation. This indifference reveals complete self-absorption. His only concern is his perceived right to attack however he wants.
8. He claims victimhood while admitting aggression.
Rowley simultaneously claims to be a victim of slander while proudly declaring his right to attack as I see fit and happiness to pay fines for doing so. This is contradictory. Victims don't declare they're quite happy to continue attacks and even happier to pay fines. Victims seek redress, not opportunities for retaliation. Rowley wants the right to attack without consequences. When consequences come, he claims persecution. This victim-aggressor duality is characteristic of abusive behavior.
9. He attacks hypocrites rather than addressing standards.
Rowley's dismissal of critics as hypocrites who could take a hike is classic deflection. He doesn't argue calling the Prime Minister Jamet was appropriate, that the term isn't sexually degrading, or that it's acceptable political discourse. Instead, he attacks critics. This avoids the central question: was his conduct acceptable? Whether critics are hypocrites doesn't change whether sexually degrading language violates broadcasting standards and democratic norms. It does. Rowley's focus on critics' alleged hypocrisy rather than his own conduct proves he knows his conduct is indefensible. 10. Manning was right. The raging bull has no control. Patrick Manning warned that when Keith Rowley becomes angry, he becomes a raging bull. Rowley's response to TATT proves Manning was prophetically correct. A measured response would have been, I disagree with the Prime Minister's allegations and challenge her to provide evidence. However, using Jamet was inappropriate and I regret it. Instead, Rowley produced an angry, rambling rant that falsely frames regulation as censorship, employs whataboutism, claims unlimited right to respond as I see fit, declares happiness to pay fines, invents false narratives, attacks critics, and shows zero accountability. This is not someone in control of his emotions. This is a raging bull, someone so consumed by anger he cannot recognize when he's crossed fundamental lines.
In conclusion, a man who will pay any price to demonize.
Dr. Keith Rowley's response to TATT proves he is willing to pay any price, financially, reputationally, morally, to continue demonizing Prime Minister Kamla Persad Bissessar. He's not defending himself or the PNM. He's explicitly declaring he's quite happy to violate broadcasting standards and even happier to pay fines if it means continuing to attack the Prime Minister with degrading language. This is obsession. This is vendetta. This is a man so consumed by bitterness about electoral defeat that he cannot accept accountability even from regulatory authorities enforcing long-standing standards. Patrick Manning was right. When Keith Rowley becomes angry, he becomes a raging bull, unable to control his temperament, unable to recognize boundaries, unable to conduct himself with dignity expected of a former head of government. TATT has done Trinidad and Tobago a service. A man who declares he's even happier to pay fines for violating broadcasting standards will not be deterred by warnings, he will only be stopped by enforcement. Trinidad and Tobago deserves better than a former prime minister who views paying money to continue degrading the current prime minister as a worthwhile investment.